Hello, class. This lecture will cover chapter 25 of Matthew's Gospel. And we look at verse number 1. Then the kingdom of heaven will be comparable to 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish, and 5 were prudent. For when the foolish took their lamps, they took no oil with them, but the prudent took oil in flasks along with their lamps. Look at the commentary. It seems best to understand the parable of the 10 virgins as a judgment on living Jews soon after the Lord's return. The context clearly points to that event. The judgment of the Gentiles, the sheep and the goats, will occur when the Lord returns, too. The Old Testament prophets predicted that the nation of Israel would be judged as well. In the parable, Israel is pictured as 10 virgins who are awaiting the return of the bridegroom. In wedding customs of Jesus' day, the bridegroom would return from the house of the bride in a procession leading to his own home where a wedding banquet would be enjoyed. In Jesus' parable, he as king will return to earth from heaven with his bride, the church, in order to enter into the millennial kingdom. The Jews in the tribulation will be some of the invited guests, privileged to share in the feast. But preparation is necessary. In the parable, 5 of the virgins took the necessary lamps and extra oil and joys. However, 5 others had lamps but no extra oil. In verse 5, Jesus continues the parable. Now when the bridegroom was delaying, they all got drowsy and began to sleep. But at midnight there was a shout, "Behold, the bridegroom come out to meet him." Then all those virgins rose and trimmed their lamps. The foolish said to the prudent, "Give us some of your oil, for our lamps are going out." But the prudent answered, "No, there will be enough for us and you too. Go instead to the dealers and buy some for yourselves." And while they were going away to make the purchase, the bridegroom came, and those who were ready went in with him to the wedding feast, and the door was shut. Later the other virgins also came, saying, "Lord, Lord, open up for us." But he answered, "Truly I say to you, I do not know you. Be on the alert then, for you do not know the day nor the hour." Look at the commentary. At midnight, the bridegroom arrived. The lamps of the 5 virgins without extra oil were going out, so they had to go searching for oil and missed the arrival of the bridegroom. When they returned and found the wedding feast in progress, they sought admission but were denied. Israel in the tribulation will know that Messiah's coming is near, but not all will be spiritually prepared for it. His coming will be sudden, when it is not expected. The 5 wise virgins illustrate that those Jews who not only anticipate Messiah's coming, but also are spiritually prepared for it. The other 5 prefigures those Jews waiting for the Messiah's coming, but are not spiritually prepared for it. In verse 14, Jesus says, "For it is just like a man about to go on a journey, who called his own slaves and entrusted his possessions to them. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, each according to his own ability. And he went on his journey. Immediately the one who had received the 5 talents went and traded with them, and gained 5 more talents. In the same manner the one who had received the 2 talents gained 2 more. But he who received the 1 talent went away and dug a hole in the ground and hid his master's money." In another parable, we're looking at the commentary now, another parable on faithfulness, Jesus told the story of a master with 3 servants. The master went on a journey and gave each servant a specific amount of money, or talents. The talents were of silver and weighed between 58 to 80 pounds. Thus the master entrusted his servants with considerable amounts of money. The amounts were in keeping with the men's abilities, 5 talents, 2 talents, and 1 talent. 2 of the servants were faithful in caring for the master's money by trading with the talents and gaining additional wealth. The 3rd servant, who received 1 talent, dug a hole in the ground and he hid it. Now in verse 19, Jesus says, "Now after a long time the master of those slaves came and settled accounts with them. The one who had received the 5 talents came up and brought 5 more talents, saying, 'Master, you entrusted 5 talents to me. See, I've gained 5 more.' His master said to him, 'Well done, good and faithful slave. You were faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the glory of your master.' Also, the one who had received the 2 talents came up and said, 'Master, you entrusted 2 talents to me. See, I've gained 2 more talents.' His master said to him, 'Well done, good and faithful slave. You were faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master.' And the one who had received the 1 talent came up and said, 'Master, I knew you had to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow and gathering where you scattered no seed. And I was afraid and went away and hid your talent in the ground. See, you have what is yours.' But the master answered and said to him, 'You wicked, lazy slave. You knew that I reap where I did not sow and gather where I scattered no seed. Then you ought to have put my money in the bank, and on my arrival I would have received my money back with interest.'" Look at the commentary. The first 2 servants were faithful in caring for the master's money and were accordingly rewarded for their faithfulness with additional wealth, additional responsibilities, and sharing of the master's joy. The 3rd servant proved to be a worthless servant. Look in verse 28. Jesus says, "Therefore take away the talent from him, give it to the one who has the 10 talents. For to everyone who has, more shall be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who does not have, even what he does have shall be taken away. Throw out the worthless slave into the outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." Now look at the commentary. The 3rd servant, who received 1 talent, reasoned that his master might not be coming back at all. If he did return someday, he would simply return the talent to his master without loss from any poor investment. But if he failed to return, the servant wanted to be able to keep the talent for himself. He did not want to deposit it into a bank where it would be recorded that the talent belonged to his master. His reasoning indicated he lacked faith in his master. As a result, he lost what he had and was cast into judgment. Like the unworthy servant, he too would be eternally separated from God. The parable of the 10 virgins stressed the need for preparedness for the Messiah's return. The parable of the talents, however, stressed the need to serve the Messiah while he is away. In verse 31, Jesus says, "But when the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, then he will sit on his glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate them one from another, as the shepherd separates the sheep from the goats, and he will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left." When the Lord returns in his glory, this is the commentary, he will judge not only the nation of Israel, as in the parable of the 10 virgins and the parable of the talents, but also he will judge the Gentiles. The judgment determines who will or will not enter the Messianic kingdom. The Greek word ethnos, which the NASB 95 translated into the English word nations, should be translated Gentiles. These would be all people other than Jews who have survived the tribulation. They will be judged individually, not as national groups. They are described as a mingling of sheep and goats, which the Lord will separate. In verse 34, Jesus said, "Then the king will say to those on his right, 'Come, you who are blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. Naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me.' Then the righteous will answer him, 'Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink?'" The commentary. The king on his throne will extend an invitation to those on his right, the sheep, and to enter the messianic kingdom God had prepared for them since the creation of the world in this parable. The basis of their interest is seen in their actions, for they provided food, drink, clothing, and care for the king. The king's statement will prompt the sheep to respond that they do not recall ever having ministered directly to the king. We see in verse 38, Jesus says, "When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or naked and clothe you? When did we see you sick in prison and come to you?" The king will answer and say to them, "Truly I say to you, to the extent that you did it to the one of the least of mine, even the least of them, you did it to me." Then he will also say to those on his left, "Depart from me, accursed ones, into the eternal fire which has been prepared for the devil and his angels." The king will answer that in the commentary here, that they, the sheep, performed these services for the least of these brothers of mine, and by doing so were ministering to the king himself. These brothers must refer to a third group, which are neither sheep nor goats. The only possible group would be Jews, physical brothers of the Lord. A Gentile going out of his way to assist a Jew during the tribulation would mean that Gentile has become a believer in Jesus Christ during the tribulation. By such a stand and action, a believing Gentile will put his life in jeopardy. His works will not save him, but his works demonstrate that he is redeemed. To the goats on the left, the king had pronounced judgment. They will depart into the eternal fire, which has been prepared for the devil and his angels. And here we see the words of Christ, "For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not invite me in. Naked, and you did not clothe me. Sick and in prison, and you did not visit me." Then they themselves also will answer, "Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or naked or sick or in prison and did not take care of you?" Then he will answer them, "Truly I say to you, to the extent that you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me." These will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous into eternal life. The basis of the goats' judgment will be their failure to extend mercy to the remnant of Jewish believers during the 7 years of tribulation. The lack of righteous works will demonstrate their unconcern. Such individuals will sympathize with the world dictator, the Antichrist, and support his cause. The goats will be removed from the earth and will be cast into eternal fire. With all wickedness removed in their various judgments at the second advent of Christ, the Messianic kingdom will begin on earth with only saved individuals in physical bodies, constituting the earthly kingdom as subjects of the Messiah/King. Glorified saints from Old Testament times and the church, that is the bride of Christ, will also be present to share the reign of the King of Kings. And that concludes this lecture on chapter 25.